Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at a brand new Shadow Pokemon in the world of Pokemon Go, Shadow Carracosta. Carracosta is a rock and water type Pokemon that does have a pretty varied moveset. Your choice of Rock Throw or Water Gun, and then a bunch of different charge move options. Personally, I'm going for the route of Water Gun, Body Slam, and Surf. Now, while it is eligible for the current Fossil Cup meta, that meta is very hostile to rock types as a whole. So I'm actually going to be testing it out in some practice open Great League battles with members of my Discord. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. And we're starting off with Mirror Lead's Annihilate versus Annihilate. This lead matchup is always a very scary one, and for the second video in a row, I go up against an opponent whose Annihilate wins charge attack priority over my insanely attack weighted one. That is really unfortunate. I'm going to bait with the Night Slash as well, but them winning charge attack priority means that I have to call this next one. The good news is, if I get it right, Night Slash doesn't do a ton. It is the Night Slash. That does way more than expected, and I realized that on the first CMP tie, they got the Night Slash boost. The game gave me no visual indication that the boost happened, but it did. And that is going to complicate things, as now, unfortunately, I'm going to be able to grab the final shield and land a Night Slash, but they're still quite healthy. I'm going to bring in the Gligar. My plan is just to fully sacrifice it and then try and sweep with one shield Shadow Carracosta. Opponent is going to be sending in Cresselia. Cresselia is going to go for the Grass Knot, but I'm able to win charge stack priority with the dig on my Gligar. Grass Knot will come close to knocking out, but I have a very high rank Gligar, so I'm going to be able to withstand the damage, and then it's all up to Carracosta. In comes the Shadow Carracosta. I will have to commit a shield as they're going to be able to make it to a Grass Knot. I'm a Water Rock type, that's double super effective damage, so I have to protect myself. I'm going to look to farm up as much as I possibly can and go for the CMP tie here, Body Slam to their Grass Knot, and pick up the knockout. They do have some energy on that Annihilate. In comes the Annihilate. They get farmed down in the back. It's a Gligar, and look at Shadow Carracosta go. These Water Guns shredding through the Gligar. Surf picks up the knockout, and I'm able to take the Game 1 victory. Great lead in the next match, as I'm able to lead the Annihilate up against a Guzzlord. Opponent safe switches into the Shadow Feraligatr, and this is honestly a weak spot for this team. I don't have an amazing response. I grab a shield with Night Slash, I bring in Gligar. My Aerial Ace won't KO here, so that's why I didn't throw it right away. Instead, I'm just going to double shield and farm them into a range where an Aerial Ace will actually be able to knock out. So I'm going to build up to the back-to-back. They still don't have a Hydro here, so my opponent has no incentive to ever shield this move. They're just more than happy to take their shield advantage. Odds are they're coming back in with the Guzzlord. Guzzlord's energy can do some pretty solid damage up against my Annihilate. The dig is going to connect. I'm just going to throw the Aerial Ace instantly because I want to force the final shield or pick up the knockout here. I'm expecting the shield. They let it go. In the back is a Skeledirge. Trainer, I am so sorry. Look at it get deleted by Water Guns. This thing outputs monster fast move pressure with Shadow Water Gun. Oh my goodness. Just like that. Skeledirge has pretty decent bulk, and it has been entirely farmed down. They do leave with a Disarming Voice loaded, but I have a guaranteed win con by bringing in the Gligar. Gligar is going to get knocked out with the Disarming Voice, but they're very comfortably in counter down range for Annihilate, so Annihilate is going to get the counter down and take the win. We move to the next match, very neutral lead here, as I lead Annihilate against Goodra. Goodra is going to strike first with an Aqua Tail. I know that I do win the 0, so I'm usually hesitant to shield Annihilate. The one thing that does give me pause, though, is a lot of the times Goodra is paired with Skarmory, and if there's a Skarmory in the back, then my Gligar is not going to be particularly valuable. So if they shield here and farm me down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the Gligar, and I'm actually going to no-shield. Aqua Tail is super effective damage, but I can survive it. But if I shield it and there's a Skarmory in the back, I instantly lose. So I'm hedging my bets in case there is a Skarmory. And there it is. I'm going to switch out into the Carracosta. In the back, a Shadow Feraligatr. Up a shield. This game feels like it might actually be winnable. This is a very poor matchup for the Shadow Carracosta, but even though Water Gun is resisted, look how much damage it's doing to that Shadow Feraligatr. This thing outputs some serious fast move pressure. I will commit the shield. I'm looking to overfarm as much as I can. I need to be able to make it to a Body Slam to knock out the Feraligatr and a Surf versus that Skarmory to have a chance to win the game. Come on, Carracosta. Carracosta gets to the Surf. The question is, will this do enough to put it into Shadow Dig range? It gets them low. I don't think it's low enough. I will fire off the dig on charge attack priority. This has to KO to get the win, and it barely does not. Backline Skarmory proven to be very difficult. Did what I could in that game, but unfortunately we lose by a narrow margin. There's a big problem on the lead in the next match, and its name is Shadow Golbat. I'm going to save switch into Shadow Gligar. The save switch is unanswered, which is great for me. I'm going to fire off this Aerial Ace. It lands. It's already in Night Slash range, and out comes Whiscash. Baiting this out is great. I go for the dig, but here's the downside of running a max bulk Gligar, is occasionally you can lose charge attack priority to Whiscash, and they get the 30% Scald debuff. That's really unfortunate. I'm going to commit the shield. And now my plan for me is pretty simple. I'm going to bank a ton of energy on the Gligar, and then I'm going to take advantage of the desync of the switch clocks by bringing in Annihilate. My opponent is unable to switch because they stayed in with the Golbat once the game began to fire off a move. So they are going to go for the Scald. I'm just going to keep farming up energy. In comes the Golbat. They have to Shadow Ball here. Poison Fang, I think I can survive. The Poison Fang does not KO, and I get my Shadow Ball. That is absolutely massive. Shadow Ball picks up the knockout. Down goes Golbat. I have a lot of energy on Gligar, and of course, I do have the Carracosta. In the back, oh, it's Charge-a-Bug. That's extremely good for me. I decide to go for a bait here. Even if they call it, landing a bunch of Aerial Aces will be helpful. They shield, and now I'm launching the dig. This will do substantial damage to that Charge-a-Bug, and I'm still not in a range where an X's or will KO. Opponent switches out into the Whiscash, hoping to make a Scald, but I'm able to outpace and fire off the Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace connects the switch to Shadow Carracosta and the Water Gun Snipe. In comes Charge-a-Bug. Let's see, can I survive a discharge here? Discharge, Shadow Carracosta barely hangs on. They get the farm down, but they don't have two moves, so this game will end in victory because one X-Scissor is not going to KO, and the Wing Attack after definitely will. Tough lead in the next match, Annihilate versus Altaria. Honestly, this entire team is pretty soft to Altaria. It's never really something that I consider a whole lot in my team building. And of course, if I had Rock Throw on Carracosta, I could switch out into Gligar because I would have had another pretty decent check in the back, but unfortunately I don't, so this is going to be difficult. My opponent ends up calling the Night Slash bait as well, which is a little awkward. I'm going to build back up to the Shadow Ball, and a Shadow Ball would come very close to knocking out here. So I'm able to grab the shield, no Night Slash boost, but I am just going to keep spamming out these Night Slashers, trying to get this Pokemon as low as I possibly can. Aggressive switch to the Gligar. I'm now up energy, and I'm just going to go for a full farm down of my opponent. They connect with the Moonblast. They're going to be switching out into Shadow Alolan Sandslash. That's not a Pokemon that Shadow Carracosta wants to see. I'm going for the bait here. I get the bait. This means I'm going to be able to make it to the Shadow Dig. Opponent is going to see CMP-tie to force the final shield, but getting rid of this Alolan Sandslash is huge. The hope is that now my Shadow Carracosta can do well now that it doesn't have to worry about a potential drill run. But hopes are dashed as it's Shadow for Alligator in the back. I have to get the catch right to win. I predict they overfarm, but they throw instantly. If I had gotten that catch right, I potentially could have been in a position to win the game, but without the catch, there is no winning that match. We move to the next match, another tough lead, Annihilate versus Cresselia. This is a matchup that is awkward, but I have to stay in because, of course, I have the Shadow Carracosta in the back. And Shadow Carracosta, if I have a bunch of shields, I can do pretty okay versus Cresselia, but if a Grass Knot lands, I'm going to get knocked out. So I will shield up the first move, bait with the Night Slash. They call the bait, but there's the boost I was looking for in that previous game. The boost has arrived. Night Slash will be shielded. These counters are going to start shredding through this Cresselia as well. They're going to fire off the Grass Knot. Grass Knot doesn't quite KO here, but it basically does enough. I'm going to be firing off the Night Slash. They're probably going to be throwing here pretty soon because they don't want to take any more boosted counters, which is very fair. They're going to be able to pick up the knockout, or not quite, but they get the farm down. Oh man, that's actually a little bit worse. I'm going to bring in Shadow Gligar and look for a farm down. Opponent pivots out into Unova Stunfisk, and if this is what they're sending in, they are so weak to Gligar in the back. I'm thrilled to see the Unova Stunfisk here. Obviously, my Shadow Carracosta can hit for super effective here, but it takes super effective back. I will go for the dig because I just want this Pokemon gone. The fact that they're switching it in means that I'm going to need my Gligar to put in work. They can bring back in the Cresselia though, and Cresselia will be able to output some pretty significant damage. I was expecting them to do one in the Moonblast, and I was going to try and catch onto the Carracosta, but it's not to be. I will get the farm down in the back. Oh no, it's Poliwrath. I have to hope that this is the Shadow, and somehow I can farm down. In comes Shadow Carracosta, these counters shredding through the turtle, but the Carracosta water guns down a Poliwrath and takes victory. The Dragon leads return in the next match, this time in the form of a Shadow Shiny Dragonite. What an unbelievable flex. I'll fire the Night Slash to get the shield, and then I'm just going to look to switch out into the Shadow Gligar. Opponent staying in this matchup, throwing a move right before I get to mine. Very, very well timed by my opponent. They're going to switch out into Greedent. Typically, when I see Dragonite and Greedent, I think the third is going to be a Lantern. And if that's the case, then my Water Gun Carracosta is not going to be particularly valuable. Opponent will fire off the Body Slam. Here, I actually have an idea. I'm not going to throw my move, because on this team, the Greedents all run Trailblaze, and I can KO in 6 counters. So I don't throw the move. If they have a crunch, they get it here. But on this team, they almost always run Trailblaze, so they're only able to make a slam, and I get a bunch of energy, and they're unable to bring Dragonite in due to the fact that a Night Slash would KO, so now I get the alignment that I want. I'm able to land the Shadow Ball, in comes the Shadow Dragonite, and I bring in Shadow Carracosta. This will be close. If I can get the Water Gun down, I can genuinely win this game. So I shield up, go for the farm down, but they get the damage registration error. The Water Gun that KOs is denied due to that charge attack being clicked. And unfortunately, after that damage registration error, I'm unable to win the game. It is a game mechanic, but it's a very inconsistent one. I really want Niantic to fix it so it either is 100% of the time or 0% of the time. Dream lead in the next match, leading Annihilate into Vigoroth. Opponent safe switches into Shadow Feraligatr, and unfortunately, I don't have a good response to this. Again, with team building around something like a Shadow Carracosta, you're going to have one or more things that is just going to be very difficult to deal with. Azumarill would also be very tough for this team overall, just purely due to the fact that Shadow Carracosta, due to its water and rock typing, is a bit limited in terms of what it can do in the meta. The good news here is I'm able to win switch and neutralize that Feraligatr, so when Gligar comes in, I'm just going to pivot into my own. The goal is to force my opponent to pivot back out into the Vigoroth, and now this game is just a victory, because I'm going to get to do what Shadow Carracosta does best, and absolutely water gun down that Gligar later in the match. My opponent is genuinely playing well here. They're perfectly aware of my energy, CMP tying, doing everything that they can, but unfortunately, I basically just have them hard countered here, and I was able to pivot out, so I will get the Annihilate on the Vigoroth, and watch here. I very intentionally don't throw that last counter. That looked like a denial, but that was intentional. I stopped tapping so I can get a 1 water gun head start, so this way the Gligar isn't up energy on me, and the poor Gligar is just getting farmed all the way down. That fast move pressure is beautiful, and we're able to take the win. Great lead in the next match here, as I end up leading Annihilate into the Magnezone. They save switch into a Shadow Gligar, and Trainer, I am so sorry. The Surf will be shielded. Opponent is going to farm up, one shy of the back-to-back. I'm going to shield and hope that I can Water Gun down. They bait, and that means they're going to be able to get this dig. That's a little unfortunate, but the nice thing for me is that if they bring the Magnezone, Water Guns are going to shred through that thing, and I can get the shield right back with the Surf, and then just use Gligar to absorb energy. So I'm still feeling pretty good about that. In comes Cresselia. I'm going to throw the Surf right before my opponent gets a move. They don't really want to take a second one, so I'm going to throw 1 Water Gun, and then look to switch into the Gligar, and I get the catch and the wing attack through. That's really nice, as technically there, I end up getting 3 turns of energy, even though my opponent only ended up getting 2 turns and their move. So, all in all, ends up working out pretty well. I will fire off the dig. It picks up the KO because they have to save the shield for the Magnezone, but at this point, there is 0 way for them to win the game. The only way they can potentially win is if I bait, and I'm just never going to bait, so I will go for the dig. They have to try and mirror shot here, but unfortunately, yeah, Gligar is going to get to a move. Even if they throw a move, I have insane fast move pressure with Shadow, Water Gun, and counter, so realistically, once Cresselia went down, there was no way to win the game. We got some spice in the final match. Oh my goodness. Leading Annihilate into Aurorus. I love the spice, but I have to keep my Gligar away from that. I'm going to Night Slash the Giratina safe switch, bring in the Gligar, and I'm definitely not shielding the Gligar. I'm hoping my opponent shields and tries to make a play for switch, because I don't really need switch advantage in this game, as long as I can keep Gligar away from the dinosaur. I will fire off the Aerial Ace. That's going to be able to pick up the knockout. Opponent will be able to send in the Aurorus. Unfortunately, I just don't have enough HP to make a dig, and an Aerial Ace is not going to threaten a shield from my opponent. I could bring in the Annihilate, but our clocks are desynced. I think I'm going to bring in Carracosta because I'm thinking it could be Gligar in the back. And if it's Gligar in the back, then my Carracosta up energy is going to do amazingly. Weather Ball, not going to do a lot. They're staying in, which means it seems like whatever they have in back is not a huge fan of a Shadow Carracosta. So the Weather Ball will connect. I'm just going to farm them down. They switch out into Cresselia. So I get why they didn't want to switch, because Shadow Carracosta with 2 shields and up energy can actually beat Cresselia. In this instance, I'm low enough where they're probably going to be able to Psycho Cut me down because I've taken a lot of damage. But as we see, the Surf plus Water Gun pressure does a lot. And this is the regular non-Shadow Cresselia. So it is the bulky Cresselia. I can fire off the Body Slam, grab the shield, make another Body Slam. And now I just switch into the Annihilate. What I'm going to have to do here is when I get to the Night Slash, I'm going to have to wait a turn and make sure that I see the Psycho Cut start, because a catch would lose me the game. So I farm up, I wait the turn to see Cresselia visually start its animation, and that guarantees me victory as Night Slash KOs Cresselia, and one counter will KO Aurorus. All in all, I had surprisingly a lot of fun with the Shadow Carracosta. By no means is it a top meta pick, but I do think it's a mon that you should invest time into getting. Because future limited metas, this thing could be very, very strong. It has pretty solid bulk overall, and we know there are definitely some metas where having a Rock Throw user can be very advantageous. Granted, in this particular instance, since I was trying it in Open Great League, I ran it with Water Gun, but I do think that it is one that's worth grabbing, so you have it in case there is a future limited meta where it is valuable. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.